going to record on my local computer too, in case the YouTube thing doesn't work. So we're recording now.
I just verify. Oh, what the? I don't know. The problem is it thinks I have too many Google accounts, and so I don't know where it thinks it's broadcasting to. So why don't you just record and we'll keep working on it?
No problem. So do we need to
motion to approve the minutes?
Well, but my question was about Gwen. If she's not in during a certain part, do we have to wait for her to get to the next part of the agenda so that she?
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I don't think you do because you have representation.
Right. We have a quorum, so we can just plow right through.
Very good.
I'll second Maureen's motion on the minutes.
Discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Good. Aye. Approved. You have the agenda in front of you, Chris?
I did. Let's see.
I think I have it here. Yep, I've got it. Okay, so good. Public comment? Nope. Great. Committee member comment?
Nope.
Nope. Great. Okay. Discussion and possible action. Continue discussion on plan for further action on subsequent policies. Update. When last we met, we talked about the sort of process a little bit and refine the process to try to keep it sort of within our, sort of within our roles. We would be responsible for sort of propelling it forward and try not to make it contingent upon Sharon being able to have bandwidth or anybody else in central office to have bandwidth to move it forward. Part of that is this first step that we see, which is to sort of consolidate and create all these in a single document. I want to talk about that a little bit because we have our previous work and comments in the 1000, 2000, 3000. We don't have anything yet in the 4000 series, which is good. I have a couple of ideas of how we might want to proceed. If we intend to have a single document with all of these, I think we're going to want to resolve our comments for the 1000, 2000, 3000 series before we start consolidating all the documents, because it can be technically challenging to copy over the comments and sort of have all of that sit in one document. So that's option A. Option B is we can try, and then if the worst happens as we try to consolidate those documents, we will have to go back and sort of re-comment or resolve those things. So I'm not crazy about option B. I think probably the best thing to do is just go through the 1000, 2000, 3000 series to the point where we put in comments. I think for the 3000, our last comment, I think it was February 28th.
It says in the top of the screen. Last edit, February 28th.
Oh, there you go. Excellent. So I had something here, but there must be something further down. And I think it was Maureen. I think you were the one who made the last set of comments on the 28th. Also, we can do this, which is really handy. Look at the version history. And when we look at the version history, I'm just going to scoot this. So, okay. So I guess, okay. So I made some comments, Maureen made some comments, and you made some comments, Chris, on the 28th. So good.
There we go.
So we can see that's where we left off. So I'll find those comments, but what I would suggest is we actually go through, resolve, and sort of move anything that we have questions on. We move it to our questions document. Try to get through those, and then everything going forward. So I can take the 4000, which has no comments, that would go into our centralized document. And then we can take all of the 5000, 6000, 7000, there is no 8000, and copy those into the document as well. The 9000 series.
That's the bylaws.
That's the bylaws, exactly. So just as a matter of sort of deciding on the process, does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, it's as good as anything. I think, the only other thing you do it in parallel is if you wanted to merge the 4 through 8000 now to sort of start creating that in the background, that just is
that's my intent, because I think I'm going to learn a few lessons as we do that. And In fact, I don't want to totally commit that is the process that's going to make the most sense. It may turn out that as I merge in the 6,000 or 7,000 series, the document becomes unusable. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, I'd rather learn it then before we've gone to the trouble of merging all the others. If we have to keep them as separate documents, it's not the end of the world. I think we can cross-reference effectively having them separate. I just think, one document is going to be great if we can.
I am more than happy to let you drive and follow whatever process you find most efficient.
Cool. Okay.
Ditto.
The rest of the policy review process, I don't think there's anything controversial here. Just, reminder, our intent is to take 60 or so pages at a time and try to move through as quickly as possible. Sometimes we might say more. Committee meets to review and discuss. We take anything that comes out of those conversations that should be, we need guidance from, there's Gwen. We need guidance from administrators, we need guidance from council, whatever the case might be, and put that into a document. We then forward that to the appropriate contacts for them to make their comments, and every 4 weeks we get together to follow up on any of those open issues. Okay, core documents. Hi, Gwen. So we talked about a series of core documents, and I think we'll all remember how uncomfortable I was with the poor formatting. So I've spent some time trying to clean up the formatting. I'm still not super happy, but it's better than it was. So I think we're talking about essentially 3 documents, and I think before we had 4 documents, but I would argue that one of those documents is actually a sort of subsection of another. So policy committee open issues, that will be a document that's a sort of working document. That's where we'll move the questions we have that need to be referred to administrators and legal counsel. I think originally I was considering that to be a document that would be only for the purposes of this policy reboot, which I like the idea of calling this our policy reboot group, but just floating that. But I think, in fact, because we intend to have quarterly reviews of this content, then we may always have open issues, questions that come up through those quarterly reviews of the content, and therefore I think that becomes an evergreen document that at some times may just be blank. But
it's almost an audit trail too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And as we just saw with when I showed the version history, like there's a huge amount of sort of capabilities inside of Google Docs for us to track who said what when and sort of how this has evolved, which I love. And another document, policy updates collection, that is the CABE just sent over a collection of 4 policies. Okay, we just got another set of policies. As we're waiting for the quarterly reviews, we'll just aggregate those sort of policies there, so we don't have to go hunt them down afterwards. The process should be that as we go, we're putting them in there. So when it comes time for the quarterly meeting, we just open up that document. Okay, and then we have the policy manual. So the policy manual itself, I think, is in 3 sections. This is where this is just my thought on how we go from 4 core documents to 3. We had enumerated duties as one of the core documents. I thought it could be useful to simply include that as a part of the policy manual overall, and to have that be a section. It could be after the preface, or it could be after the policies, or whatever we think makes sense. So open.
It could be an appendix at the end, or
exactly. Right, exactly. We could move it to an appendix. That makes sense too. Cool. So, but essentially, the policy manual would have at first a preface. Words. In the preface we have definition of terms and the interpretation guide. The place where we say, if we say building principal anywhere, it also means head of school. If we say head of school anywhere, it also means principal. Like, settle down, everybody. Here are the terms.
Boys are girls and girls are boys, right?
Yeah, like if a word sneaks in that doesn't perfectly describe these, here's how we will interpret those words to be, interchangeable or fungible. then we have, this is a document that Chris had worked on after a conversation, I think we had several weeks ago, where it just became clear, like, we need something more. And CABE is not going to provide us with policy or guidance really on what it means to run a tri-district, or what, like the complexity of running a district or a set of districts like ours. And so Chris came up with some starter language that we should review, but that should be, I think, probably a part of the preface, where we cover principles, meeting governance, shared resources, and then the policy committee core principles. I think this should be a living, breathing document, and as a part of being that, we should continue to articulate those policy committee core principles, which we should probably review and refine a bit. And then we have the enumerated duties, which again could be in the appendix, the policies themselves, and then here are the bylaws.
How easy is it within Google Documents if we're in, say, policy 1022, and we see that there's an enumerated duty to the superintendent? Can we create a link there to this table?
Yes, and vice versa. I think
right. Run the other way.
Exactly. So I'll show you. We'll come back up to what we just zoomed by in a second. So I started this as the enumerated duties table. The idea would be that we can go right here, and we can, somewhere in here, there's something that says hyperlink. There it is, link. And we could send this straight to headings. Oh, and this is one of my favorite parts too. So I started going through and actually tagging headings as headings, so that they'll show up here as linkable sections, right? So let's just pretend we wanted to go to the Easton writing policy there. So now we can, with this little click, we can jump down to that section.
It feels like we went from 1997 to 2022, skipping the intermediate 30 years, but it's
yeah. So there's some really good stuff we can do here. And so we can cross-reference, in both places we can link back. So I'm super excited about that. I think that'll be a really nice feature. Cool. Any questions about any of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that sort of strikes me is when we're going through it and we're trying to tag an enumerated duty, we can create a link to the table there without necessarily filling in the table in that moment as we're going through.
Right.
So we're not highlighting text and keeping a side list. It's all these links are going to direct us to work that has to get done.
Right. Yeah. And I think I think we'll want to make sure that we sort of do some kind of tag in the table. I don't know that. Yeah, I think that through. At a minimum, we should be tagging things using a keyword of enumerated duties, ideally. Then we can just do a search for the comments of enumerated duties, and we'll always be able to go back and reference. We also need to go back through the 1000, 2000, 3000 series.
Do the same thing, yeah.
And find the things that we did. I was actually trying to do that before we met today, but ran out of time. So, okay. Good. Maureen, you had a question as well?
All I was going to say is kudos to you for organizing this, because it's a primer to me on, how well Google Docs will organize things.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And a small but really insignificant point, unless you're making Chris and I a council, it's a council with an S.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Chris and I can be your council, but
the council of council would be
right.
It is in here somewhere. There it is.
2 lines up. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
SEL.
Thank you. And I probably have it somewhere else in here too, but I'm just going to comment that.
We can be the council for forevermore.
Ay. Again, the typing. Okay. That'll be enough. Okay, good. Good. So, do we want to talk about the preface and sort of work through some of this? I think this is more heavy lifting because it's not just taking CABE policy and sort of approving it. This is sort of authoring and thanks to Chris, more editing.
Yeah. I think this probably falls into the go back to your corner, read it, think about it, comment it, because
Good.
Other than you and I don't think anyone's seen this yet
Yep, fair enough.
as a raw draft.
Okay, so let me just make certain that everybody has this and is pointing to the right document here. So Sharon is an owner. Good. You're all editors. Okay, good. Can you all individually access this? You see where it's at? I renamed it. It was like copy of blah, 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 blah. So this is, you want there to be confusion. This is the Joint Policy Committee - policy reboot.
Shared with me.
Yeah, if everybody can just make sure that they can get to this document.
Edited today. I think I'm going into it right now.
Cool.
Yep, here I am.
Good. And Maureen and Gwen and Tom, you're able to get in?
I don't see it right now unless,
If you go to Google Drive shared with me, it should be the first thing because it was just edited.
I can also copy a link and put it into the Zoom chat.
yep, there it is. Never mind.
Oh, okay. And
Got it.
Gwen, you have it as well? Yes. Good. And you're muted, Gwen. So if you said yes, I didn't hear it.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay.
Screen was hidden. I couldn't get back.
No, I hear you.
But yes, I could find the document.
Okay. So one of the first things that we'll be looking for is comments on the what is currently in the preface. So principles, meeting governance, shared resources was another section that we said we wanted to be in the preface. But we didn't have any content for that. Was the intent that we're sort of calling out central office staff and any other resources that are shared amongst the 3 districts? Is that?
We could make it what we want. I don't know if that's central office, and also if we're calling out our intent to share transportation and food service and things like that, other areas in which we are deliberately taking a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 approach. So that in 5 years, when these contracts are up, nobody says, the last time we did this, we agreed that.
Good. Yep. Okay. Good. Okay. This I'll do the work of taking our 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 and putting that into enumerated duties before we meet next. These are our core principles. I think these will also want to, for the evergreen version of this, we'll probably want to polish them a little bit, but I think they still make sense. There was one line in here, just so everybody's clear. There was I think it was the previously number 3. That was that we're going to have a sort of glossary of terms. I removed that from here and just actually added the glossary of terms. So, okay. Good. Okay. So now we're in the policy section. So these policies, if we scroll down, so we have 75 pages, we can see that these were policies that we are editing in November. We can also see that we're missing the tags, right? So this was, right, so this part of the document, we should not do anything here. We're going to these broken out sections, and you'll see here we actually have the numbers. I think there was some issue where when Sharon was copying them over, it wasn't copying over the numbers.
Some numbers were missing.
Right.
At least in the beginning.
Right. So I will delete the sort of policies in here, but I'm going to go through them carefully and make sure that we're not, sort of missing anything, sort of that's.
Because will you be able to tell where we made changes? You'll have to run them against each other.
You can, yeah. So
you go to the version history. If in theory, we didn't copy from another document to this.
Correct. You can also compare documents. This is a brand new feature of this. I mean, it's been in Word for forever, so it's really nice that it's here as well. So we can compare this to another document, and that's the work I need to do to make sure that we're not missing anything. But this, right, I think it's really clear that this 2000 series, this is the right document. The 3000 series is the right document. We'll just have to compare the 1000 series, and 4000 we don't need to worry about right now.
Yep.
Okay. So do we want to start going through, and I think probably starting with 2000, 3000, do we want to start going through 2000, 3000, looking at and trying to resolve as many comments as we can?
We have the hour set aside and we don't
Yep.
have any work downstream to go through. So
Cool. Good. All right. I'm going to start at the top. All right. All right. So per our principles, aspiration language can be removed. Maureen, I know it's probably unreasonable to expect you to remember back from January 9th. But, so here, okay, actually, never mind. On January 17th, meeting deciding to cut pages 1 to 18, starting 2000 series after therefore. So I think, unless anybody disagrees, I think we're comfortable doing that.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to add.
Some of these comments may have just been in there from before, not indicative of the fact that we didn't remove the language.
Let's double check that. I suspect that this didn't actually get deleted, but we're going to go down to page.
I think early on we were marking stuff for deletion, not actually deleting.
Yeah, the process I think we were doing was we were going to suggest the changes and then finalize, like our last comment would be something like this, and then Sharon would do that. And I think we're just going to make sure that we do that ourselves. Okay, so good to change. Okay, I'm just going to mark things as that. Okay, and I think you're continuing to say aspirational. Okay, so let's go down to page 18 and make sure that we see where we would cut to.
Now we're in appendix.
Let's see if we see a therefore here. There we are.
Yep.
Okay. So we discussed this at length before and decided that this is where the 2000 series would start, which is actually 2001.
We would basically read administration,
Yep.
all supervisory personnel.
Correct. Okay. I was going to say good to change. Okay. Very good. That's progress.
You didn't reply, John.
I didn't finalize it. Thank you.
No.
Very good. All right. And certified, it looks like in that case we did.
Yep.
Okay. Duties assigned within policy. We should remember to highlight these. Yes, we should. Okay.
Who's that smart guy who said that?
All right. What do we, and the specific term we're using is enumerated duties.
Do you want to create like enumerated duties table, EDT, or some sort of shorthand that's going to be not in another word? So you're not constantly typing enumerated duties?
I like that. EDT, Eastern Daylight Time. Cool. Very good. Okay. I think we can resolve these.
Yep.
So good and good. Fantastic.
And it seems also like you can search the entire document for the words will be responsible. as
Yeah.
shorthand for finding the enumerated duties.
You just revealed the hack that I was going to use to make it look like I had done so much work. All right, good. Good. Ah, I see we were using duties before. Okay. Good, good. This is just fun. Okay. More duties. Wow. Okay. Chairman.
Glad we resolved this one just in time.
Okay, good. Good. Okay. Good. Delete. If I resolve this, is it going to remove it? And hide discussion.
I don't think so, because I think it's marked for deletion.
Yeah, I think if you highlight it and insert a comment, it's not actually deleting it. I think we would have to do something else to say
Right.
accept this change. Something
You actually
like
have to
that.
delete it. I'm
Yep.
not sure it was deleted so much as just highlighted.
Right. I think that's right. Are we in agreement, Maureen? I think you were suggesting
May instead of shall, just
right.
because maybe there's an internal candidate.
Right. So are we comfortable with deleting this entire section? I think the idea, and Chris, you can say for yourself, but was to just simplify this.
Right. I think the idea was it's a question of how much we want to tie hands and dictate a process that may or may not be appropriate in a given circumstance. You know, where's the discretion line versus the we've always done it this way line?
Right. So to discuss, or are we comfortable deleting?
Can you scroll up a little bit to the bolded text?
The bolded text encompasses the highlighted text to me.
Yeah, in fact, there's a sort of new concern that I have about the bolded text, which is that if we're appointing a personnel search committee with equal representation, that's never going to be the case as long as our boards are of unequal membership.
Right.
If the tri-boards appoint themselves a PSC, Reading is always going to have more bodies just because of the way that we're structured.
Right.
And so short of dropping somebody from the Reading board from the committee and making it a committee of 20, which sounds
absurd,
unhelpful.
Right. Are we comfortable with 2 members from each board? Like that's actually what we're doing right now.
Right. As far as a steering committee, this is where we get into the distinction of a personnel search committee of the whole versus the steering committee as a subcommittee of the PSC. Like the tri-boards appointed themselves a PSC for the purpose of holding a non-meeting as a PSC versus a tri-board meeting.
Okay. So that this section is referring to the PSC, right?
That's what it says.
Right. And so do we want to true this up with the process that we're using right? Isn't that what we're doing right now?
What I might say is instead of the chair shall appoint a personnel search committee, something to the effect of any personnel search steering committee shall have equal representation from both towns. Add steering. Because then you're talking about the subset, which is what we did, which is the 6 members, 222.
Okay. I'm struggling to
Me too.
to think about how we put it. So any personnel search committee, no. I'm struggling to see the difference, but I'm sorry.
Right now, this says that the 3 chairs need to agree on a timeline, and then they appoint a personnel search committee with equal representation.
Mhm.
So they can't do that right now without dropping somebody from Reading if they're trying to appoint everybody. That's the first issue. The second issue is then if we want to define what a steering committee is in here, I'm starting to think that maybe the answer is because this is a wonky tri-board thing, does this go into our tri-board mechanics section and not this policy? Because really what we're talking about is how a tri-board committee is created.
Right. And it could be a committee for something else. I mean, we could have a similar issue.
So yeah, and so are we saying? I think we're saying the recruitment of a superintendent is always a tri-board job, and so it doesn't belong here. So we remove it entirely from this section. It goes up into.
I mean, it might be if you scroll up above the bold,
Yeah.
that straight text might be the only language we want in the policy. And you might here want to make sure that it says, you know, the boards acting collaboratively shall blah, 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 blah.
Is that why you hired me? Because I have a disability?
This wasn't the policy back then. I don't even know. Okay, so we're saying take this and throw it into the top section, but under the banner of joint committees.
I think this policy exists because the superintendent is the employee of the boards.
Yep.
And so this is effectuating, carrying out our legal responsibility to hire a superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Where it gets complicated is we have this wonky structure where really we're all hiring a third of a superintendent, but we're all agreeing together to hire one human.
Right.
So how do we manage the mechanics on a tri-board basis with the sort of core policy committee principle of this policy exists to effectuate a legal obligation?
Right.
Because part of this is getting into effectively a tri-board bylaw.
Right.
As opposed to effectuating a legal obligation.
Right.
And so what we're really trying to say here is, you know, the superintendent is the employee of the boards. The boards shall work collaboratively to appoint a superintendent, you know, as may be required from time to time. You know, yes, we want to maintain, you know, recruitment of underrepresented groups, and applicants who fulfill from within will be sought and from without, or whatever.
I like the idea of us moving like the sort of specific stuff. So just have this high level thing. Maybe we even include a reference to say, you know, as you know, refer to the tri-board. I feel like it could be a dangerous thing to let tri-board bylaws catch on, but I like,
Yeah.
but I understand what you mean by it and agree. Yeah.
This sort of the tri-board governance framework is really what it is.
Right.
Refer to those instances where that's necessary.
Yep. Refer to. I actually want to think about specifically tree board. Okay.
Now it's French.
Tree board. Okay. Tree board governance. Section within. There's a delay on the typing, so that has a little bit of a contributing factor to the poor typing. Within preface for specific guidance surrounding the recruitment of superintendents. Guidelines.
Yeah, guidelines, process, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the reasons I like that, I can imagine this kind of statement will find its way into a few places in the policies that ideally, I think this language here is very likely straight from CABE.
Yeah.
I think as much as humanly possible, we don't want to have to do a bunch of wordsmithing. We
Right.
want to
And
be
it-
able to, yep,
And I remember in January, we did sort of beat this like a dead horse,
Right.
trying to come up with something that fit sort of round peg, square hole here.
exactly. So if what we do is, if as much as humanly possible, we simply adopt the CABE language, we choose between A and B, leaning towards brevity. We remove the aspirational statements. We remove the R's, that, you know, the non-P stuff, right? And then it's much easier for us to compare and make updates when we get our quarterly reviews. We don't have to constantly wordsmith when we get those things. And wherever we see that language, refer to tri-board governance section, you know, for the details of this. Then we know we've done that work, because we've had to, in that section that's at the top. And it's not even in any of these, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000s.
Right. You know, this policy is, you know, modified to include this sort of footnote for tri-board purposes, basically.
Yeah,
And that also serves as a flag for when CABE issues revised 2141.
exactly.
And the future policy committee says, let's just plop in new 2141.
Right.
There's a pause that says, wait a second, we've looped back.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so, and I could imagine that we make a more generic version of this so that we can plop in that exact, do we want to do that now, or do we want to just say that we're going to do that?
I would hold until we know all the areas where it's going to actually go, because that might help define how general the language is.
Come on, I typed the E. Okay, I guess I didn't. Okay, that'll work. Cool. Okay, we are going to remove this, but we might actually use this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna X, and then we're on page 27. I'm gonna go wee. Oh, right.
In the wrong doc, yeah.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so I'll just pop it here for now.
Yep.
Excellent. That's fun. Okay, very good. Said I was on page 27, but I clearly wasn't. Duties, 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 duties. It's a weird quirk of this. Sometimes it'll tell you the wrong page, but okay. Okay, so here we are. So we're saying we're deleting all of this. I think good. Okay. Bye-bye.
Keep
Excellent.
going. More to delete.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And leave the statutory reference.
Yes. All right. Moving on. Hiring school administrators. This is another place where I think we specifically call this out. although it's sort of a different section. It's the and I did not include that part, Chris. I only copied the part that was specific. So we had talked about sort of tri-board structure and needing some policy guidance that's sort of specific to our situation, but also just making it more clear sort of the authority of the superintendent to effectuate sort of various parts of their responsibilities. And so there is a section for that. And I don't know if it seems like it belongs here because it's not necessarily unique to the tri-board situation. It's simply making sure that it's clear that the superintendent has the authority to hire and do that with some guidance from the board.
I think you can leave this one here.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is the question here on the first paragraph is the sort of fundamental, the board will appoint based on recommendation of superintendent, suggests that it's a
It's directed.
board final say, not a superintendent final say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. This creates a mechanism that
This
makes
says
it-
the board has veto power over the superintendent's
That's
choice.
right.
And there's some merit in that. If the spirit and the intention is aligned, you don't want the superintendent hiring their cronies or your best friend's cousin. I think that we often take something and make it much more complex than it has to be, which is why I like the approach you're taking to this policy stuff in general. And this lays out for you, how to make an appointment valid.
stakeholder interviews, background certification, consider and review the recommendation of the superintendent and retains the right to accept or reject any candidate. Are we comfortable?
Reading the section that I had marked for deletion in January, I kind of think it's helpful, if not to have that, to have something like it, so that it's clear that if we're going to maintain this right to refuse the recommendation of the superintendent, that we put sort of guardrails on that.
Yeah.
So that it's not a carte blanche right to reject it because we don't like, something about it. It's
Right.
articulate your basis and reject it with cause, not
Right.
just because.
Yeah.
Which
Why
gets
did?
to the protection Tom is after. Of
That's right.
You don't want somebody just bringing in their brother and their sister.
Yeah. Or a board member saying, "Why didn't you hire my cousin?"
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think what we're saying is we're going to resolve this and leave this language in.
The only thing I'd like you to talk about is at least 3 finalists.
Yeah.
Like at the moment, we know in special education, to bring you 3 finalists, we would be dummying up 2, because there just is not a pool.
Yeah.
So
It says, and bring 3 finalists when possible, including
Yeah.
the recommended candidate. So have we covered that with the when possible, or do you want it to say, and to bring when possible, at least 3 finalists? Move the when possible prior to that.
If we can live with the when possible and make sure, if we are all aware of the when possible, I think this is probably the CABE language.
Instead of it to bring, you could say endeavor to bring, so that it's an aspirational hope that you can find 3 candidates. But
Do we endeavor to bring and when possible to bring 3?
Doesn't matter to me.
I'm fine with either.
I'm also fine with just leaving it
Fine.
as it is.
Fine
so
with
that
whatever.
we can say CABE. So because I think this is the CABE language. So if it's
Right.
like
if
we
there's
can-
no value added, we should default to the
Right.
CABE language.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I think we're resolving and leaving.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And do we
Some-
want to note there, like there's
Yep.
there's a board choice in this policy that I think we almost need to be kind of aware of.
Hmm.
At the time of deciding to fill a vacancy, the board will determine whether the full board, a committee, or an appropriate administrator will interview the finalist for the position. It's sort of a procedural trigger. I don't know if we want to be sort of noting those somewhere also, because that's something that can sort of get lost. You know, in the context of, you know, the John Reed search, we never had a formal conversation about whether or not who's going to interview finalists for the position. We created a PSC, we hired a consultant, but we didn't drill down into this particular policy to call out this particular obligation because I didn't know it existed. I'm just trying to think about shortcutting frameworks so that everyone is aware of their obligations, because 21 board members aren't going to read 1,400 pages of policy.
Yeah, they're not.
Or remember it.
I wonder, I mean, we'd have to go back through the other places. I mean, it sounds a little bit like what we're saying is there is, you know, we've got our document that is going to capture the responsibilities of superintendent and his or her designees. We might also want to have a document that says, here are the responsibilities of either board chairs and or the board to make decisions at various points.
It's almost like there's an FAQ that, you know, commonly required provisions. How do you replace a board member? How do you hire an administrator? How do you handle complaints from the public? These sort of things that come up much more frequently than how do you handle somebody who complains that the potato chips have too many calories in it?
And on that topic, I'm a really big fan of that idea. I was paying special attention as we were going through our Board of Finance conversations, because I've heard these same questions before, and I bet you've probably heard the same questions. And I think if we had an FAQ document, it would help move us forward, or at least reduce the amount of.
It's at least the Cliff Notes version. It's the, so you're a new board member.
Right.
Here's the 5 or 6 things you're going to be asked in the first year.
Right. Right. Good. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Common scenarios. I mean,
FAQ isn't really the right term, but we understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Some kind of reference document, basically, that distills this down for common questions.
Yeah. It's like the Cliff Notes thing. I think that's a good way of thinking about it, but okay.
Can I, Wayne, before you go off of that?
Yes, please.
Can you go to a little bit more up? The Board of Ed will appoint qualified persons to all senior administrative positions, and then the first parenthetical is central office. So would it be board or boards, or do you want to separate out each individual board's appointments versus these shared ones?
I think that probably comes out in the preface.
In the, this word means this and can be translated.
Right. Where we're discussing shared resources, Board of Education shall mean the board's action jointly.
Right.
Right.
We should, I think we can use this as an example. That'll help us. Good. Okay. Okay, looking for the next comment. And we have 7 minutes. Do we,
TBD.
huh?
think this is where we diverged because we said that bylaws are reserved for individual boards, but this
Right.
is talking about how to develop both of them.
Doesn't the bylaws, I thought within the bylaws, it says how to change the bylaws, no?
I think so.
Well, under your rubric of the tri-board is an odd construction, one of the conversations you should maybe have is the bylaws should be unified. That right now they're not. You know, there's policies about procurement at the high school that aren't in the other two schools. It could be that you move on to that work here.
Yeah.
We're taking a baby steps approach to getting series 1 to 8,000 aligned before we tackle the
Right.
this is how I keep my house, you keep your house however you want conversation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. If it works out that way, that would be excellent. And if not, you know, we at least did the 1 to 7.
Also, just want to point out, Sharon sent you an email yesterday with policies for,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, I think maybe we should pause here and just talk about next meeting agenda and talk about the message we got from Sharon, because
Right.
I
If we
suspect there was something
specifically
more
add
behind that.
Yeah.
Yep.
For homework, I think we'll rely on John for you to send us where you've got and where you expect us to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can. It seems like we're able to make progress using our sort of old comments. So at one point I was thinking perhaps we should everyone individually go through the comments, but I don't think we have to do that. I think we can continue, and we're making very good
This can be
progress.
reasonably efficient.
Yeah. And so what I would say is if we look at the 3000 series, we'll end up picking up from wherever we left off on February 28th. And so the job will be to continue commenting on the 3000 series, and then we'll pick up with discussion here and ideally get to the 3000 series. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Can you send a link to the 3000 series just so it pops up?
I can. Yep. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, good. So Tom, do you have thoughts about sort of the documents that Sharon sent and sort of?
I actually haven't seen them either. I
Okay.
just gave her the assignment to go find them. Yeah.
I have that here. Good. Okay. So one was the reopening document, which is the 50 pager. I think we've all seen that. One was the emergencies and disaster preparedness, and then the other was the distance learning plan. Do you want to look at any one of these right now, or do we want to add this like before we make progress with 3000? Should our homework be to sort of look at these in particular?
Yeah, I do. I think you probably want to look at whatever
Okay.
policies that are more recent, because now that each of the three unions, well, all 169 unions have demanded impact bargaining on the reopening plan, and they came out with a statement last night or today that is, when you look at it, it's designed to keep you perpetually in distance learning until the vaccine comes up. So there's going to be a lot of work for you board members, and probably ensuring that the more recent policies. I haven't looked at it either, so I'll need time to.
Yeah, I would suggest, since we don't have these specifically on this agenda, that we put it over as the first item of our next discussion.
Agreed.
Yep.
Very
Not
good.
through those, and then through the 2000s, 3000s is ambitious already. So,
I think that's exactly right. Good. All right.
but so what do we want to talk about for schedule as we enter sort of the eye of the July hurricane here with scheduling?
What does next Friday look like for folks?
Next Friday's fine here.
Looks a lot like this Friday.
Yeah, it's fine for me. Okay.
Sounds like next Friday at 9 it is.
Works for me.
Yep.
Good, Tom. Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay, so next Friday we'll
John, you forwarded a document that is titled 2000 Series Cave Delete. Is that the intended title?
no, it should just be 2000 series -CABE.
Yeah, the one that I just got an invite to is 9:53-cabe-delete. So you might have
Just
shared the
now?
wrong one. Just
I didn't-
9:53 a.m. The email came through. Yeah. Click on that and see if the name goes any longer.
Yeah, no, there's nothing there. And
Oh, the
I-
document, it's interesting. The document itself is titled differently, but the email that came through says
okay.
2000 cabe delete, whatever. Seems to be the right
Okay.
one.
And I didn't do anything. I mean, I clicked share just to see who was on it, but I wonder
Yeah.
if that triggered some notification. So, okay.
I don't know. In any event.
Okay. Okay, good. So we're going to start with the new policies that everyone received via email from Sharon last night. Then we'll, to the extent that people are able to take some time to continue making comments on the 3000, good. Next week, we'll discuss the new documents. And then if time allows, we'll get into the reconciliation of 2000 and if possible, 3000. Good. Kirby.
Any committee member comment?
Not at this time.
Public comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a good 4th.
Happy 4th, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.